Virtually every game has two sides to it, the system side and the psychological side. The system side is the rules and the mechanics, sometimes in video games called the environment. When somebody talks about player versus environment in video games, they're talking about the player against the system. Chess is a game that's heavily about system. That's partly because all information is available to both players except the intentions of the other player. So even in chess there is a psychological element, but it's quite small. Mastering the system is necessary in puzzles because puzzles are almost entirely system. The only psychological element involves the intentions of the person who made up the puzzle. Mastering the system in a game with human opposition helps against those who have not mastered it, but if everyone has mastered it, then it becomes psychological. So the psychological is the opposite of this. It's about the opposition. Usually it requires human opposition, although sometimes you can have a computer opponent that can be seen into. You're not actually reading its mind or reading its intentions, but you can predict it. When you have a game with more than two separate sides, and I'm not talking about a two-sided game like a team game, but where there are more than two separate interests, then the psychological becomes very important. Because, of course, in a three-player game, for example, you're outnumbered 2-to-1. Unless you can find some ways in the psychological to do better than your opponents, then the system part is going to have you outnumbered 2-to-1. Poker is a highly psychological game. It has a very simple system. You have to master that system, but a lot of people have mastered that system and still are not successful players because they haven't done well on the psychological side. So, must game designers study psychology? Well, even those who are making puzzles where there isn't human opposition are still making an experience for the player, and so understanding a little bit about player psychology is good. If you're making a historical game, then understanding human history, which is mass psychology, is important. Do you need to formally study psychology? Probably not. How about history? Well, that depends. Keep in mind I have a PhD in military and diplomatic history, so I'm kind of prejudiced. But I think if you're going to design historical games like war games, then you need to study history. To a considerable extent, we could identify the system side of games with the notion that games are all about math, and the psychological with the notion that games are about people or stories. And keep in mind that the psychological may also involve what David Serlin calls yomi, reading the intentions of other players. And here is a URL for an article I wrote about this in 2009, if you want to see a different side of it.